Hey y'all, thanks for joining us for another episode of 911 Delta, Tethered for Life. This podcast may not be suitable to all listeners due to language and subject matters. Please listen with care.
Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of 911 Delta Tethered for Life podcast. We're your hosts, Casey and Anna. So last week's episode, we had an amazing guest, Mark Smith, who has had a unique upbringing in South Africa, almost becoming a priest before entering the public safety world. Tonight, we continue with part 2 of From Clergy to Top Gun. So grab those headsets. Let's talk.
Welcome back, Mark. What did you do after aviation?
I was squad supervisor in Mount Vernon, and I loved that. Loved that. It's such an awesome squad. I made some good friends on that squad as well. And then I was also an internal affairs investigator. And you don't voluntarily go there. You get voluntold to go there. I was there for 2 years. It was not my favorite assignment, but I mean, it's. Why are they? I mean, in this, you realize that there was very few bad apples, that you work with. Very few, and most of our time when I was in that section is defending the officer, and they did nothing wrong, and people would make these wacko allegations against, and you have to spend so much time and effort into and the poor officers going through this whole process because there's accusation against them. And there are times we had to get rid of a couple of bad apples. But we didn't, you did it in dignity, And I remember one time we had to get rid of one guy, and he thanked us for the way we treated him. Towards the end of my career, I did work for the narcotics unit, and that again was just, I'm like, well, in my mind, I said, why didn't I do this earlier in my career? But that's where my career ended, was with law enforcement coming out of narcotics unit. There's a supervisor there. So, and I love that, just like I said, working with phenomenal people,
Do you have
from
a
like
favorite
patrol.
assignment?
I think each of them have, I did not like internal affairs. I'll tell you, that would be at the bottom of my list. It's just that I just wrote, you had to write so much. And it was one fun. I like the operational part of stuff. I love doing that type of thing, hands-on type thing. I didn't like doing a lot of admin kind of stuff. It's hard to choose. I'll be honest with you. It's very hard.
Did you ever have any problems like trusting their squad? Like if y'all went on certain calls?
Honestly, no.
That's
I never ever had that issue. And I think it talks to your leadership. And we were very close. And like all the squads I've been on, every one of them. We would sit, at the station, sit around the table, eat our dinner, and just talk. And have changed a lot now. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, we did things back then you'd never be able to do now. Nothing illegal or anything, but just couldn't do it now. It's just,
I think that's like just a general breakdown in community and society.
And say that's what I said about some of it. I don't know if it's the same, that the camaraderie, I don't know. From what I see, it's just not the same, but I tell people, remember when you first started, the old guys then were saying, "Oh, it's not the same. It used to be." You'd hear that.
Yeah.
Now you become the old guy, and you're saying, "Oh, it's not the same. It used to be." When you're a leader, you got to remember that. You got to be able to adapt as well. Right? I mean, at least the young people, when they come and join, they are bringing some good things in, and you got to learn to adapt to some of this. And always just tell people, listen, the youngest person on your squad, and you could come out of the academy yesterday, has a say. Let them talk, and you always want them to voice something. Who knows, they might get a bit of flack from the senior guy, but you gotta let them talk. You gotta hear them out, listen. So you remember you were once that young guy. That's one of our big things. Always have that young guy feel comfortable, or gal feel comfortable to talk. Don't be afraid to say, voice your opinion. I think as a dispatcher, you don't sometimes know the end story, huh? So you dispatch something, and that you don't really know what the outcome is. If I had the ability, I'd send them dispatch a message or something. Hey, this is what happened, and this is the outcome. Or when you have a chance, give me a call, and just kind of debrief them on what happened. It just gives the dispatcher some sort of closure of what occurred, So,
That was always nice. We never got that too often, but
yeah. But I think it's important. Really, really, really good dispatchers that just was so good at communicating. I think sometimes you get frustrated with the dispatch. I mean, honestly, you get frustrated
well,
with
yeah.
this. And vice versa, you get frustrated with the cops as well.
Any advice for dispatchers dealing with their law enforcement counterparts? What did you appreciate about a good dispatcher, or what kind of advice could you give them when they get a little frustrated with their law enforcement partner?
I'd say don't hold it. If you got to vent something out, talk to somebody, because what you don't know sometimes, eh? So if there's something that's bothering you, well, you go talk to that person. I think also being a good dispatcher is being a good listener, especially in high tense things. If you get so worked up, just don't get frustrated with the cop at times when they're not answering the radio.
Daisy.
Uh, yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
has a little
A little tood.
somebody would get a little tuned with that. That was
Yeah.
one of her pet
And,
peeves.
and it comes across when if you're on a radio and I had the attitude, I'm like, what the F, like I don't say it, obviously, but in my mind, I go, what the. But again,
Right.
that's like, all right, maybe it's something that we need to, hey, can I, or call me. Okay. I'm sure you've done that. Hey, can you call me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Work it out, and sometimes you're like, okay, sometimes it's a tense situation.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has a mission they're trying to accomplish. And if their part of their little mission is not working out right, it can get very frustrating.
What's your advice for people dealing with that work-related type trauma? And it might be the same thing you just said about working out your issues, but what's your advice for people going through that?
Find a mentor or don't hold it in. And don't be afraid to go talk to somebody about it. It's not worth it. I've been through so many traumatic things, and I've spoken to people. I've been to talk to people about it. Fortunately, we had on our agency we had full-time psychologists, and you can go talk to them. It's all
Oh, wow.
confidential. Another thing is, don't hang around all law enforcement friends. Have other friends. So
Right?
because you end up we're talking about the same stuff all over
Mm-hmm.
again.
Hmm.
Have people that have totally different careers, do totally different, do something, play golf, do whatever it might be as well. But do other stuff so that you can talk about other stuff. And
Awesome advice.
Yes, indeed. What
yeah,
are some of the most challenging situations you've had to encounter in your career, and how did you handle them?
sometimes making a decision that you just like, am I making the right decision on this? As a supervisor, especially, like, if you don't know, you don't know. Don't pretend you know,
Mm.
because you'd lose trust at that point. And tell people, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. I'll get the answer. But don't pretend that you know it when
Right.
you don't know it. You're not gonna. It's no good.
That's
Um,
good advice.
That
Good
is very
yeah,
good advice.
yeah. Go into another jurisdiction, and it's a hot call or something, and you cannot communicate the
Mm-hmm.
challenge. How do we come about this challenge and trying to figure out a way around something? That happened multiple. Communication was a tough thing. Or something. Back in the day, it was really hard because we didn't have as easy as how people are patched together they are now. But
Right.
back in the day, it was sometimes at the land, pick up somebody, they'd have a radio, and you tell them they'd radio down on the car, and it's just figuring how to get through the challenges.
Can you describe a situation where you had to make a split-second decision that significantly impacted the outcome of an emergency?
Yeah, so I remember in patrol one time. I was young in patrol. It was evening. We went to a noise complaint, just a normal noise complaint. Okay, in an apartment complex. We parked our cruisers up high. We were walking down, and we could hear the noise. It was people being loud in the parking lot. Nothing crazy. We walked down. We announced ourselves, and the kid turned around and he pointed a gun at me, and I pulled my gun out. And it was just like that. This kid, I pulled my gun out. He pulled the gun, and it was a toy gun. the time, it was so quick. The kid turned the gun, I pulled my gun, and he dropped it right away. And it was so close. I mean, and I look back at that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what that could have been life changing. Obviously for both. That
Right.
kid this kid was only like 4 years old, and
Wow.
um, uh, yeah, and I'll never ever forget that because that was such a close situation where it could have been really really bad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
Woo!
I know. I remember we had a robbery, a bank robbery, but I was actually training as a sergeant at the time, so I was with the guy training me, and we happened to come around and we saw the bad guy jump the fence, and then we jumped the fence, and then he went into an apartment. It was only one way in the apartment and one way out. And there's a crawl space, and the door was open in the crawl space. And we're like, that guy's down in that crawl space. And so we backed out. We knew we had a canine come down. And
Let's say,
yeah,
call him the
and the
canine.
guy came down. And then it was, I remember this was also during the Santa ride at this time.
Of
And
course.
yeah. And so the guy was in the canine, went in there, and the canine ended up with that to shoot the guy, and because he pulled the gun at the time, and then we had to pull him out. There's nothing. That's crazy. Then you pull him out, and now we're doing CPR on the bad guy, trying to save the bad guy's life. Another one is where we were flying, and we were chasing a car. There was a car being pursued. Back in the day, the circus was at George Mason University. You get notice, hey, they're going to be marching the animals down 123 to the circus at middle of the night, and the pursuit was going towards when they're marching these animals, elephants or whatever. And fortunately, again, that car happened to turn off.
Oh my God. That could have gotten interesting quick. Since you came from South Africa, apartheid and discrimination and all of that, when you came here and started working in law enforcement, do you feel like it's the same challenges?
So yeah, so I grew up in the apartheid system. So we were there. I mean, whites only fountains. Black people never. You never interact. You had you never ride in the same. You never went to the same schools, segregated schools, restaurants, everything. That's how I grew up. But I was so fortunate when I was growing up. My parents, and we were brought up as to everybody's treated equal. And everybody's a human being. You treat people how you want to be treated. Um, yeah, it was tough for the black person in South Africa. I mean, horrible, absolutely horrible. What they had to go through and everything. But we were so fortunate that our parents, my parents, brought us up the way we did. I remember. And I was getting my marriage license, and we were in New Mexico. I was in a courthouse, standing in line, and the guy behind me um, is here. We had an accent. Oh, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from South Africa. But he goes, well, but you're white. I'm like, but Africa has got a bunch of white people living in Africa. It's just not black people that live in Africa. So I was just like, that kind of blew me. I didn't. I was young in the country at the time. I mean, I just immigrated I just came to the United States in end of '89, and this happened in '90. So in a few months later. Yeah, is this discrimination? 100% there is. I mean, and sometimes I would say, sometimes sometimes a little bit worse here. Yeah, I would see it a little bit worse. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I'm talking back, not now. And I actually talked about this today with a friend of mine who happens to be a black guy. He's a fellow police officer. He's still active. And I said to him, we're talking, the subject came up. And I said, I mean, I can't speak for myself, but you, I said, have you ever said, honestly, Mark, he said, from fellow employees, meaning people you work with? Never. He said, I've never, ever experienced that. He's about 20-some years of the agency. We had very good training, and there was no tolerance for such thing, zero. and rightly so. Now my career out after my second career, and I've traveled a lot. And it's funny is we all have the same basic human needs, meaning I'll sit down. I might be a different religion, different color, different whatever, but our needs are the same at the end. We all want just live in peace. We just want to have good education for our kids. We just want to have good health care, and just live life. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to have differences because if we all were the same, it'd be crazy. And it wouldn't be right anyway. So it's okay.
It'd be
And
boring.
yeah, it'd be
It would be
boring.
boring.
And the problem is, both sides on the extreme get all the noise, and
Yes.
that's what the attention is on, and which is it's so frustrating. Most people just, hey, we just want to get along. And if you think about society, even though like you think how many cops are running around, there's only a handful, but there's hundreds of thousands of people living in the county, and most people are behaving and getting along.
Did you ever feel like it's hard to keep that mindset, though, that you're only dealing with a fraction of the population,
So remember, when you're out there and you're wearing a uniform or whatever it might be, fireman, policeman, whatever, and somebody is mad or is angry at you, it's not you, it's that uniform. Okay, they will call you up and down, do whatever, and it's difficult to keep your emotions in check because just remember it's not really you unless you've personally done something and I mean they're mad, but
Right.
for the most part it's because you're representing something that they don't like.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges that law enforcement and emergency medical services face today?
Uh, I really think recruiting or getting good people right now, I think that's a huge challenge. When I got hired, okay, I'm in this for the long run. This is my career. I'm in it for till 25, 30 years. I have how many years you got to do to get to your retirement. I don't think it's looked at that as much anymore as I'm in this for the long haul by younger I think it's just like could be a stepping stone to do something else.
I was listening to a podcast with Dave Grossman, actually, he was on. Actually, it's a Navy SEAL whose podcast it is. He was saying back in the day, if something happened, we'd all go down, we'd help out. Everybody wanted to be a cop or a fireman, because we were helping, and that's why all of us joined the military. And now he's like, nobody wants to deal with anybody else's shit.
Yeah, right.
Right? I don't want to be a cop because being a cop is dealing with other people's shit all day long.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
And think about it, there's
Yeah.
a lot of negative stuff towards law enforcement.
Yeah.
I mean, who wants to be part of something that nobody likes you? I think also another thing is, I think communication skills with the newer officers coming on is difficult. When we were younger and we came in, we never had cell phones. We had to communicate with people. And I saw this in my own kids. If they had to deal with somebody on the phone, it was difficult to communicate for them because they never had to, everything was done through a text or a email. I think that verbal skills or that interaction with humans, and I'm also talking about like confrontational. So even like if something becomes confrontational, how does the young officer deal with it? Now it's difficult. I mean, I remember as youngsters, we'd get into fights and sort out things. I mean, I'm not saying it was the right, but we got into. I mean, we would sort things out. Yeah, I don't think it's the same. The young person today hasn't had a lot of conflict that they had to do, in-person conflict.
So, and I don't know, I let my kids fight it out. I let them argue all the time because I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
you guys, you got to figure it out. You got
figure
to
it
figure
out.
out how to talk to
You have
people.
to
And
figure it out.
yep. And
Yeah.
like if they're not nice, if they're, they start name calling or they do,
Okay.
then I say, hey, we
Yeah.
got to figure out a different way. But I'm not gonna, I don't,
Yeah.
I don't break it up. I just say, hey, that's not acceptable
Yeah.
behavior, right? Because they
Exactly.
got to figure out, you got to be able to talk to people.
Thing and through dispatches. And it's so difficult as well for you. Then it's like constant training, and then the load on the people that have been there forever. It's just it's that you got to bear the load and bear the load, and there comes a point like I'm up here, I'm done. Handle
Right.
this anymore.
And the
Yeah,
same thing with the interpersonal skills. I mean,
yeah,
as like when I started there and was training people, like when I trained Anne on fire rescue,
yeah,
it was awesome because she already knew how to talk on the phone. Like she had
yeah.
dispatch experience too, but people from our age group, we knew how to use the phone. But then, fast forward a few years, and now we have to teach people how to talk on the phone. I remember before Anne left, sitting across from her, she was training somebody. I was sitting on the fire radio, and this person answered the phone and had this painful conversation. Of course, I could only hear their half of it. I think the trainee got up after the phone call, and I was like, Ann, who was she talking to? And Ann says, oh, one of the deputies. I mean, this girl couldn't even carry on a pleasant conversation with a coworker,
Yeah.
let alone a raving citizen. And I'm like, oh my God. And Anne's like prompting her, say, have a nice day. And I'm like, it's like, come on. This is basic stuff. The other night, I don't think we talked about this last time, Casey. That what we should have, because we had two guys on their tractors playing demolition derby on a private road because one of them was
Oh,
putting in speed bumps and the other one didn't want them
oh Lord have mercy.
over Christmas.
Oh
Come on
God.
now. Come on now. You got to be able to talk these things out. We don't need to be, driving into each other.
Like, oh, it's the 4th of July. And you have people calling about the fireworks. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I gotta send a cop now to go 4th of July and because there's
Right.
fireworks going on. Yeah, is it
Yes,
illegal? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hate to go into those type of things as well. I'm
Yep.
like, when am I gonna
yes,
tell guy? I mean, take
And
a
and
long
they're
way around
gunshots.
to get there. Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Gunshots. Yeah.
yep,
People want to call it, oh, they're shooting. No, they're not they're shooting fireworks. Yeah. What would the
yes.
experienced Mark want to tell the young Mark about law enforcement and public safety?
take care of yourself. Invest early in your career. So whether it's in your own retirement plan as well, and I thank God I did that in the beginning as well, is if it's $50, put something away. Invest for the future. And think about what you're going to be doing next as well. Don't give up. I mean, if something that you want and it doesn't come to you right away, it'll come. Just work at it. Maybe the time is not right. It's very important that don't take things personal. Also, be very level-headed. Enjoy, have fun, enjoy it. Because honestly, when you're in the, like we talked about, when you're in the moment, like, holy cow, I mean, this is dragging on, this shift's dragging on. Then you look back, I'm like, holy cow, it went by 25 years, boom, gone. You guys have kids? Yeah, next minute, like mine are 30. I'm like,
I mean,
wait.
I can't believe your kids are 30.
I can't either.
That's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
Enjoy the moment. Just savor everything. And listen, your personal life comes first. So my son, his commander, wrote a card. No, I wish I think of something like this. Wrote a card to the significant other, so the wife or whoever, the boyfriend or whatever. Wrote a card, personal handwritten card to each of them, thanking them for allowing their significant other to be in the military, for what they do, and for being a part of it. And as his gift to them, he said, use this card as your pass to take Gavin is anytime you want to during the work. So you can have him whenever. This is my gift to you. So when he's scheduled to work today and you want him to be off today, you write me a note. I want Gavin for myself today or whatever. That's my gift to you. I'm like, that's brilliant.
That is brilliant. And now that you are on to your second career, what would you say about your law enforcement career looking back on it?
I just said, like, everything I wanted to do in my career, I was able to do. It was very tough leaving. I will say after retirement, the hardest part is that missing that camaraderie. And now you have to knock at the door. You can't just walk in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not being in the know, also not knowing. I wonder what's going on. Why are the
Yeah.
guys there? Not being in the know is what's the tough thing, but it's okay. And now I'm retired, and my second career is really awesome. And I look at what I had and what I have now, and it was a law enforcement career gave me that. What I have now. I just from being an immigrant, I'm an immigrant, and then coming and looking at what I've achieved and what our families achieved and what our kids are doing and now it's just amazing what I don't know if I ever would have had that opportunity,
Right.
um who
And you
knows.
guys are like the American dream.
It's
Yeah.
Like,
amazing. I mean,
Well,
I just
Mark, it was such a pleasure having you and of course listening to you, which I've been good. I haven't said nothing about your accent the whole time.
oh yeah, yeah.
That's why I've been so quiet, just listening. But we appreciate you taking the time
No,
out of your
I appreciate you
busy
having me
schedule.
on, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think what you're doing now and getting this, just having people talk, is great because you can hopefully your listeners will get something out of
We have
it.
a great time doing it. So
And I wish you all the luck in because I'm listening to them now, and Anna and I are listening to them as well. So,
yay.
but we've got to
awesome.
catch up. So, but we'll. Yeah, now we got to go listen to what I sound like when I'm like, oh, geez, I sound like this,
Right. That's the worst. Oh my gosh.
Do I really sound like this, So,
Getting used to hearing your own voice,
oh
man.
no, oh no, oh no, it is like like that. Anyway, so, but you guys, I appreciate it. I wish you guys all the best for 2024. And thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Same to
So,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
All right.
All right.
Good
Talk
night.
to you later. All right. Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, guys, before we wrap it up, we want to shout out to everyone who's working out in all this cold and snowy mess. And I don't know if you guys remember, but a few episodes back, we had someone write in about their comm center possibly being consolidated, so it would be like a city-county thing where folks that have been there for years wouldn't get to keep their benefits and all that horrible stuff. Well, shout out to Annie, who let us know that the mayor has decided not to switch things up, so that's great news for all. Next week, we'll dive into what makes us tick or glutton for punishment. If you know of any dispatchers that have gone above and beyond, we want to hear about it. Let's acknowledge the best for doing the best.
Yes, guys, we want to hear from all of you about your perspective on public safety and the people who are doing it greatly. So write to us at podcast911delta@yahoo.com or hit us up on the social media. You can check the show notes for all your links and addresses. Keep listening and following or subscribing to our channels. We're even on YouTube now. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Bye.